Today is the 12th sewing marathon. This is the next to last marathon for the year 2024. Today we are going to be sewing up the Chameleon. This is from Oh Sew Gecko. This is my first time sewing this bag, and there's a lot of different options. When you buy this pattern, you are going to have several different ways to create a bag. So it's kind of like a choose your own adventure bag. I'm going to be doing one of the versions, and I know several of the other people participating today in the marathon will be doing different versions. My version will have a recessed zipper and a drop-in lining. I'm using vinyl for my exterior. This pink and silver vinyl I just had on hand. I don't even remember who they were from. This vinyl here is from the Emporium. And then for my lining, I will be using a cotton woven, and it was just here in my room. I don't know who it's from either. I'm going to first construct my front and back. Then I'm going to add a layer of foam to that front and back, as well as my base and side pieces. Just as a side note before we get started, my marathon videos are not like my traditional videos. These are a more relaxed format. And while I will be sewing the pattern up and we'll be talking about it, I throw in a lot of other crazy stuff that just kind of probably detracts a lot from the sewing. So don't expect to get a lot of sewing knowledge from this video, but if you want me to do a full video without all the extra tidbits added in, just let me know and I'll definitely do that. So let's go ahead and get started sewing. This is how the front of my bag is going to look. I'm choosing a color block option. In this pattern, your front and back can look a variety of different ways. Your front and back can be all one piece, or your back could be one piece and your front be different pieces. But the first thing I'm going to want to do is I'm going to sew these two pieces together. I'm going to use the seam allowance given the pattern, and then I'm going to top stitch that seam open, so I will butterfly the seam and top stitch on both sides of it. Then I'll attach it to this bottom piece and then do the same type of top stitching with it. I'll repeat those same steps for the back. So let's go ahead and start with this top part. I'm going to place these two pieces right sides together, and then I'm just going to sew down the seam here with the seam allowance given in the pattern. I started giving random facts out while I do these marathon videos a couple months ago. When it came time to do this one, I really had no idea what I was going to do my facts on. So I started looking up why people do the things they do, why is our human nature the way it is, and oh my gosh, the rabbit hole I went down of interesting facts. So today's facts are all going to be about humans and human nature. Humans are the only animals with a chin. Humans are the only animals that can blush. Humans are the only animals that cry emotional tears. The brain is the fattiest organ on a human, and it is made up of 60% fat, and it's not fully developed until the age of 25. Information in the brain can travel up to 350 miles per hour. Here's how this top piece looks. Everything looks good so far. Let's go ahead and put it over with this bottom piece, and let's sew these right sides together just like we did the other one. Every human has a unique smell, except for identical twins. They smell the same. You're taller in the morning than you are at night. Beards are the fastest growing hairs on the human body. If a man did not shave his beard, it would be 30 feet long in his lifetime. And this one makes sense, but I don't think we ever thought about it any, but animals that lay eggs do not have belly buttons. Mosquitoes are attracted to people who have just eaten a banana. In South Korea, there's actually a phone number, a hotline, that is dedicated solely to reporting suspected spies. The human nose can remember 50,000 different scents. Children tend to grow faster in the spring than any other time of year. Sliced bread was invented after the invention of the TV. And I know some of these aren't about humans, but I still just found them so interesting that I'm throwing them in there anyway. Like, for example, if you keep a goldfish in the dark, it will eventually turn white. Bullfrogs never sleep. A snail breathes through its feet. Fish cough. It took the inventor of the Rubik's Cube 1 month to solve the Rubik's Cube after he invented it. Mosquitoes have 47 teeth. 1/4 of your bones are all located in your feet. Brain waves are powerful enough to power an electric train. A 1-day weather forecast requires about 10 billion math calculations. This is what I have for my front. For my back, I'm going to have the pink on this side and the silver on this side. I'm going to complete the back off camera, and I'm going to go ahead and fuse both of these with foam. I went ahead and used my heat press to adhere foam to the front and back pieces. It looks like they're going to end up being on the same side, these color blocks, but if you turn them to where they are wrong side together, the way they'll be when the bag's finished, you can see that the pink is on one side and then the pink is on the other, so they're kind of diagonal. The next thing I want to do is I want to go ahead and add the connectors for the handles. I'm pretty sure the pattern piece has the markings already on it, but if you were like me and you just use the cut and measure chart to make yours, you will have to use the pattern to find the measurements to where you put your handle connectors. This is the shape of that handle connector. I went ahead and slipped a 1-inch rectangular ring on it, and then what I did with all 4 of mine is that I just folded them wrong sides together, glued them, and I have them clipped into place right now. After I have the measurements made as to where this will go on this front back piece on both sides, I'm going to punch a hole for my rivet on both my connector and this bag, and then I will fit it on there, snap that rivet into place, and only then will I sew around. I'll probably even add a little bit of glue if I feel there's a chance of slipping. I'm not going to do this part on camera. This is a part that I struggle with, these small details, but the small details on a bag really shows off if you do it wrong in the end. When I come back, I'll have all 4 of my connectors attached. So here is how my front and back look. I'm going to set them aside until we attach them to the base here in a little bit. I'm going to start working on my side panels. I'm going to do both of mine the same. Here is going to be the official side piece, that outer exterior side piece. If you wanted, you could leave it plain just like this, be done. But I'm going to add 2 pockets. One of the pockets is going to be this pocket. It's going to be a slanted pocket. And the other pocket is going to be a very small pocket, and it's just going to be a square shape like this. What the pattern tells you to do is to go ahead and sew this small pocket piece and then attach it to the exterior, and then attach the lining to the exterior, and then attach it here. I'm going to do mine a little differently. I'm going to sew up both of my small pockets and my angled slip pockets together, and then I'm going to attach this piece through the lining and the exterior. So for this small pocket piece, what you'll do is you'll start sewing down here at the bottom, back stitch, go over, pivot up and around, and then over again here at the bottom, and just leaving a small opening for you to turn this right sides out through. So these pieces are right sides together. On my lining piece, I don't have anything, no SF101, anything. It's just a piece of cotton woven because my vinyl is stable enough for me to just let this be just a piece of cotton woven. On this angled piece, what I'm going to do is I again am going to have my lining just a piece of uninterfaced cotton woven. I'm going to lay it right sides together. On this one though, I'm just going to sew the top and the bottom with the seam allowance given in the pattern. Then I will turn it right sides out through the side. On both of these, once I have them sewn and turned right sides out, I will top stitch across the top. You share your birthday with 9 million other people. In Slovakia, they have a Christmas carp that they let live in their bathtub a few days before they eat it. A 10-gallon hat holds less than 1 gallon of liquid. The average American will eat around 35,000 cookies in their lifetime. Here is this first small pocket done. I'm going to trim up the corners and then I'll turn it right sides out. I'll also do the same steps with the other one. Let's go ahead and do this pocket and then we will do the other one the same way with it also. Banks employ a therapist, which they call a wealth psychologist, that helps clients who are unable to mentally cope with their immense wealth. In 1998, over half of the population in Iceland believed in elves. A single strand of spaghetti is called a spaghetto. Now that I have this sewn, I will trim up the seam allowance on this, turn it through the side, and then repeat for the other one with those same steps. I'm going to get all of these prepared off camera, and then when I come back, we will top stitch and then add them together. So here's our pieces we have left. Let's go ahead and top stitch on these two pieces, and then we will attach them all together. There is a town in Nebraska where the population is 1. The only resident is a female who serves as the mayor, the bartender, and also the librarian. Now that we have both of these pieces top stitched, what we're going to do is we are going to take this piece and place it here. The pattern tells you how far up from the bottom to place it, but you're also going to center it. Just as a side note, like I said before, technically you're supposed to attach this little pocket to the exterior only. I wanted to go through both the exterior and the lining, so just for a little extra security, but you will be able to see my stitches on the inside, but I don't think it's going to be too big of a problem. So what I'm going to do now to attach this small pocket to the angled slip pocket is I'm just going to sew the 3 sides to tack these two together. Just like fingerprints, people have unique tongue prints. Everybody's tongue print is different. Human brains are constantly eating themselves. To cleanse the systems in the body, cells will smother smaller cells and consume them and molecules in a process called phagocytosis. The human body contains enough fat that it could be rendered down and used to make 7 bars of soap. Now that we have the pocket in place, go ahead and pull out this exterior pocket piece, and the pattern tells you how far up to measure from the bottom. I'm going to go ahead and get mine placed there. And you should of course be able to match up on the sides as well. What I'm going to do is I'm going to sew down one side across that bottom, then back up the other side. Your heartbeat can sync to the rhythm of music that you listen to. Humans can glow in the dark. It's just that our light, when glowing, is so weak that it can't be detected by the human eye. Here's my side pocket. I'll repeat the same steps for the other one. I'm going to trim up all the threads and any overhang I have, and then my 2 side pockets will be done. Let's go ahead and pull out those 2 exterior pieces. This part threw me for a loop. I kept thinking that that base piece was going to attach here. The base piece does not attach here. The base piece is a cover after you sew this together. What you do is you sew these 2 pieces right sides together here along the bottom. Then we'll bring that base in just to kind of cover up those edges and just to give it a little bit extra stability and a fancier look. I'm going to just add a few clips here. And then I'm going to use the seam allowance given the pattern, and I'm going to sew all the way across these 2 pieces to connect both the exteriors. The average raindrop falls at a rate of 7 miles per hour. Lizards communicate by doing push-ups. Redheads typically need about 20% more anesthesia than the rest of the population. Now that we have those 2 pieces sewn together, what I'm going to do is I will open it up and I will top stitch down both sides, pressing the seam open. So I will be tacking down that seam allowance with a top stitch on both sides. I'm going to go off camera and do this part, and then we'll come back to add that base piece. So now I have my sides and my main panels ready to go. It's time to start combining everything. The only other piece I have for my exterior is going to be this base piece. And so this base piece acts as a cover for the exterior seam, adds a little bit more support. I do have a layer of Decaville heavy on it, and then I have the raw edges folded under according to the pattern measurements. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to match these up at the center points, flip them in place, and then I'll just sew along the long edges of this piece to attach it. I do not need to worry about sewing the short edges because of course that's going to get caught in the seam. Humans have the same gene as the starfish that allows it to regenerate themselves. We don't do this because it would take so much of our energy, so much of our resources in our body, that it would shave off many years of our life. And so instead, our body just opts for scar tissue. There was a study done that said that people that look at pictures of people sneezing or coughing actually gives them a stronger immune system. What the theory is that that reaction, we have an emotional reaction to seeing that, and it kind of tricks the body and creates this behavioral response and gives us a boost of our immune system to possibly fend off other illnesses and viruses. "50% of people have the phenomenon called the void." This is that feeling that some people get whenever they're standing on top of a high surface like a bridge or some other open area, and they feel that compulsion to jump off. And basically what scientists say it is that it's a miscommunication in your brain. Your brain senses something dangerous and it wants you to immediately get away from it and get rid of that danger. And then your mind can sometimes process that movement, that fear, that response and reaction as that you were going to do something dangerous. But actually it was just a fear response to do the right thing. This is how the exterior looks. This base really helps to give you a lot more security, so it feels a lot stronger. It's going to lay a little bit flatter. And now that we have that base sewn on, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my pocket and place the center of this pocket piece, this side piece, on the center of my base. What I want to do though first is I want to mark my seam allowance. So the pattern tells you exactly how much it'll be, but I'm just going to come in from the side and make marks on that seam allowance. I'm not going to sew past these 2 marks, so we're going to leave the small part of this side piece unsewn. The reason we're going to do that is because after we get this sewn just across the bottom, then we're going to lift it up and we're going to make a tiny snip here at the edge. We do not make a snip onto the base piece, but just on this front exterior piece. So we'll be just to the side of that base piece, make a snip here on this exterior panel, and then that'll allow this to flip up so that we can attach it all together. I'm just going to add a few clips in place here, and then I'm going to sew from those 2 marks that I made across the bottom of this side piece to attach it to the exterior, and I'm going to use the seam allowance given in the pattern. When sewing this, you should not be sewing through the bottom of that slip pocket piece if you did everything correctly. So now that I have those pieces attached, what I'm going to do is I'm going to lift it up and then just make a snip here. We definitely want to make sure that it's not on the base and that it's not larger than the seam allowance. Once I have that clipped, then I can pull this top part up and start clipping there to have these match. I'm going to go ahead and clip down the side of this piece, matching it up, right sides together, and then do the same on the other side to get this side piece attached to these main panels. I'm going to go ahead and finish clipping this off camera, and then I'll come back to sew it together on camera. This is how it looks clipped. Everything's right sides together, and so I'll start sewing here at the top and go down. I should be able to go right down and stop sewing where that mark is that I previously made. So I'll make sure I backstitch at the top, start and the stop of this, and I'll make sure I use that full seam allowance. If you have any doubts that you didn't get fully there in that seam and have these stitches connected, make sure you put your hand inside to see if there's any openings, any gaps. I can see clearly that I have that 90-degree angle there, so mine is good. I'm going to go ahead and sew this side the same way and then do the same steps to add the side piece to this other side of the exterior, and that'll pretty much have my exterior done. I'm going to go ahead and do those steps off camera, trim up any overhang, and then I will turn this portion, the exterior portion, right sides out. Now it's time to work on that recessed zipper. The designer has a different way of doing the recessed zippers on this piece. They're going to stay raw edge. So you have the option of cutting 2 pieces or 4 pieces. I'm doing the 2-piece option. So I have a piece of zipper tape, and it's a number 5, and I have the ends folded down 90 degrees. I'm going to go ahead and separate these pieces. I'm going to keep them separated the entire time. You do not have to. This is just a personal preference. The way the designer has you do the recessed zipper is that on this one, if you had the 2 pieces, you fold it wrong sides together. And then let me go ahead and move that clip. You are going to put that zipper inside there, kind of sandwich it in, and then sew it all around. I probably would not do this method again for a couple reasons. One thing is I don't like having this raw edge on a recessed zipper. When I do a recessed zipper, I want it just to look a little fancy, a little nice, and I feel like this doesn't give me the look that I want in the end. The pattern tells you how far down to place the zipper, and you want it to be about maybe 1/4 of an inch away from the zipper teeth. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to first just sew down this edge because I don't use any double-sided tape. I'm just going to go ahead and sew down this edge first to kind of secure it. Since I don't use tape or anything, I want to make sure I have that nice and secured, but then I'll come back and close up this edge there too. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take the time to set my zipper in there and sew all the way around. So it'll be a little bit tricky because things could slide around. So if you're uncomfortable with that, go ahead and grab out some double-sided tape, some glue, whatever you like to use for yours. Once you have that first side sewed of that recessed zipper, I'll go ahead and close up this top and bottom, but I want to do the same thing with the other piece of zipper. So I'll have both of these completed, and then we'll go on to the next steps after we have these done. It's time to get the lining to put it together. We have a couple pieces that we have to put together, but basically once we get everything attached, the lining is going to go together the same way the exterior did. So here is my recessed zippers. Here is the top band. This is the part you will see when you look down the bag at the recessed zipper. You'll see these two pieces here. This band will go onto our lining main panels, and then this smaller band will go onto the side gusset panels so that it'll be the same height with these pieces here. My lining is made of a cotton woven. I'm actually probably making a mistake, but I'm not choosing to interface it with anything. I have my bag made of vinyl and foam, and it feels pretty solid and secure. The top part will be vinyl, so that will prevent me from having a lot of problems with it caving in, and I feel like then the lining will just fit in there nicely. It's a risk, but I'm going to try it anyway. So with this side piece and my top vinyl gusset piece, what I'm going to do is I'm going to place them right sides together. Then I'm just going to sew along that short edge, butterfly the seam, and sew it open. So I'll be top stitching on both of these pieces, and that will have that part done. We'll do the same with this piece with the lining, but first we need to add that recessed zipper. Take your lining piece and place it right sides up. Take your zipper gusset piece and place it right sides up. Just as a note, your teeth will always be going down. They will never be at the top. If we had them at the top, we would sew them into the bag and wouldn't see them. So on the other piece, it'll actually be the teeth with the 90-degree angle that I created would actually be on the other side. So once you have that centered, you're just going to baste that in place. Since I'm basting this piece, I'm just going to do 1/8 of an inch away. The pinky finger is the strongest finger on the hand. It provides 50% of the hand's strength. Earwax is actually a type of sweat. It is impossible to tickle yourself. Now that I have that recessed zipper base in place, go ahead and pull out that top piece. This is, like I said, the piece you'll be seeing from the exterior, so make sure it's something you're okay with looking at from the outside. Have it right sides up and then flip it and place it right sides down. You're just going to sew all across that top edge with the seam allowance given in the pattern. So you will be sewing through all three pieces from edge to edge. 12% of the population dreams in black and white. The average human body contains 0.2 milligrams of gold. We excrete this gold through our hair and skin, and babies actually have even more gold in them than adults do, mainly because it's passed along through breast milk. Once you have that sewn on, you have to decide. If you push that seam down and top stitch underneath your recessed zipper, it'll have kind of a more uplifted look. If you keep that seam up and then just flip this top panel piece on top and top stitch on it, the recessed zipper will lay more flat, more recessed down in. That's the method I'm going to do. It is a personal preference though. I'm going to top stitch 1/8 of an inch away all along this top band piece. 80% of people have brown eyes, which is the most common eye color. The second is blue eyes. The least common is gray eyes, and only 1% of the population has gray colored eyes. So now that I have this piece done, I'm going to do the same thing to the other side. Like I said, that 90-degree angle will be on the other side though. Then I'm going to attach the top band to the side pieces the same way I did this band, except I'm going to butterfly the seams open. Once we have the linings done, then we will just sew them right sides together, then add the side pieces, just like I did with the exterior. After we do those steps, what we will do is we will then drop the lining in and have the bag complete except for the handles. I'll show you how I'm doing a faux road handle on this, and then our bag will finally be complete. So my bag's almost ready to be finished. I'm going to show a couple things off and talk about a few things. I have the exterior right sides out. I have all my connectors on. Everything's attached. This bag really does look cute. I'm not going to lie. Now let's look at the lining. It's a little bit baggier than I would have liked, and I have some looseness around the top. So the inside of what I could do if I wanted to is I could go off camera and tighten everything up by sewing the seams a little bit bigger. For this top, what I'm hoping will happen is that as I'm sewing, I'll be able to work in the looseness around this top while I'm top stitching it. I also want to make for sure that the zipper is going to be closing to what I want to be my right side, the front side. If you care at all, make sure you check that. Before we even finish this bag, I like the shape of it. I really like that square, boxy shape. I just think it's really cute. I love the structure on it. I feel like the structure is really good, and that wide base gives a lot of help to make this a really sturdy bag. I really can't wait to see it sewn and have it zipped to see how it looks once it's zipped. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cross my fingers and I'm going to sew around the top, just going really slow and trying to make for sure that I keep not only the proper seam lines but everything lined up so that I can be even all around this top. We're going to go slow. We're going to stitch around this, and if it looks bad, you guys will forgive me and know that we all make mistakes and we'll try our best. So I'm going to start by just doing a back stitch here, and I'm just going to go around really slow. No rush on this. 20% of the Earth's population have a problem with eating the cilantro. I don't get this one, but they say it tastes like soap. They have problems with their olfactory receptor genes, and they're more prone to detect the aldehydes in cilantro. And so there's even people hate it so much, like it's such a big deal to them. There's even an I Hate Cilantro Facebook page. 300 million people in the world are estimated to be colorblind. Most of them are men. On the opposite end of that spectrum is a rare condition that you see nearly 100 million colors. This is 100 times as many as the rest of us. It is called tetrachromacy or supervision, and it's the result of having 4 types of cone cells instead of the usual 3. This condition is passed down on the X chromosome, so this mutation occurs exclusively in women. Okay, my top stitching really isn't horrible. Not perfect, but not nearly as bad as I thought it'd be. I did go ahead and add the zipper pull to the recessed zipper. I have not put my zipper tab on yet. The shape of this is really cool. This is a really cool shape. I love the structure. I love how it looks. It's so solid. Definitely love that. For sure. My lining doesn't, like around the top, like where I had that extra, is not as bad. Inside I can still see like the puffiness, but not as bad around the top for sure. So let's go ahead and add a zipper tab. I just took a piece of the vinyl, cut it, and I'm just going to slip it on. You could also use one of the metal zipper ends if you wanted to do that. I am slipping this on here, adding a few clips, and now I'm just going to sew with the 1/8 of an inch top stitch just to attach this, and then I'll trim up my edges. The last thing I need to do is fix my strap. Now I took my strap, it is a 2-inch wide piece of vinyl, and then I drew a line down the middle, folded the long raw edges to the middle. Now I'm just going to top stitch down both sides, but then after that I'm going to turn this into a rolled handle so that it has just that little bit of a more unique look here at the top. I had glued down the long edges to the middle, so I can take off my clips now that the glue is dry and then go ahead and top stitch down both sides just an 1/8 of an inch away. So we're almost at the end of this bag, which means we're at the end of my video and random facts. But before we go, I do have a few more. Have you ever heard of cute aggression? This is when you see something like a puppy or something that's just super cute, like a kitty, and you're just like, I just want to squeeze it. Well, this is actually called cute aggression. And what it is they say it's speculated that the reason humans develop this urge to just squeeze something that's too cute because there's actually like a disconnect in our brain. The amount of cuteness that we see causes these sensors in our brain to go a little haywire because it creates such a strong emotion in us that it causes us stress. And so because that puppy or kitty is just so cute, your brain can't handle that level of cuteness, and that phenomenon is known as cute aggression. Now that I have the strap that looks like this, what I want to do is I want to measure down a set amount, and then I'm going to fold the strap wrong sides together. So for me, that's where the seam is. I'm going to put clips, just kind of match all the way down, matching up those raw edges all the way down. I'm not going to clip them all just because I'll start sewing, but what I'll do is I'll start sewing here, and I'm going to sew directly on that line I just sewed. I think it'll be okay. If you're someone who struggles with top stitching on the same line, you could always just use glue or double-sided tape and not top stitch first, but just put it together and then top stitch. So I'm going to go ahead and now top stitch 1/8 of an inch away from that folded edge, and then I'll do this all the way down to the other end, but I will leave that same distance unfolded so that we can wrap it around our connector. For my last random fact, I will tell you a true story. In my area where I live, there is a town that's called Big Ugly. And so it was always a fun hobby to look at the newspapers and find the funniest stories from the town of Big Ugly. Our favorites would be Big Ugly Woman Gets Married, or Big Ugly Baby Was Born. And even though it's slightly sad, when the Big Ugly Man died. So now that you have this rolled handle completed, go ahead and trim up your threads. And then what we'll do is we are going to attach this to the connectors. You can do a row of stitching, you can do rivets, or you can do both. First thing I do is I just slip it on there and then I fold it down. And you can add some glue or double-sided tape here if you feel a little uncomfortable with sewing it, or if you're afraid you'll mess it up. I think I'll be okay, so I'm just going to kind of risk it. I make sure I don't get it folded or twisted or anything like that. Try to make sure you get the same even amount on both sides. Okay, I'm going to go trim my threads, sew the strap here on this other side, and then we'll come back to look at our finished bag. My chameleon bag is finally done. This pattern is a really unique pattern in the fact that it gives you lots of several options. I did choose a color block option, but you don't have to. If you want maybe a simpler, classier look, you could do all the same print. My favorite part about this bag is definitely the shape. I love the square boxy shape. I love that the base is so stable. This sits up really nicely. You would not have to worry about it toppling over. These pockets on the side are really cute. I don't think I've ever seen that in a pattern before, so that's a really unique thing. A couple things to keep in mind is the recessed zipper, like I said, is raw edge. If that's something you really don't like to have in your bags, definitely add on a seam allowance so you can sew that together so that your edges would be finished. My lining was a little bit baggy. Pay attention to that if that's something you would want to test out as a dry fit before you sew everything up. And one other thing, on the cut chart, I did not see the quantity. So for example, The lining main panel, I didn't see where it said, oh, you cut out 1 or 2 of these. So for me, the cut chart was a slight bit confusing. A couple of things there. Other than that, this was a very fun sew. This is the Chameleon Bag from Oh Sew Gecko. I'm glad that I used the foam. You could have used fleece on it, but I'm really glad I used the foam, even though it's kind of a stiffer bag and I didn't want to turn it inside out. If you had to birth it, it might be a little challenging, but for me, with the foam doing a drop-in, it's really great structure. And I want to thank everybody for joining in another one of our sewing marathons. This is the next to last one. This is the 13th marathon. We only have one more for the year 2024. Thank you guys for always watching and being supportive, and thanks to all the other sewists who join us today. And I hope today in your sewing room that you get to sew a bag that really surprises you with how it comes together in a unique way. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have an amazing day.